Welcome to another episode of Wholesome Thinking. The main objective of our conversations is to challenge people's minds and stimulate wholesome thinking by utilizing the gifts that God gave us. This platform is inspired by scriptures, spiritual journeys, perspective, and life. It's important to us that we highlight these conversations to help others on their journey and provide perspective. In 2 Peter chapter 3, it says, "Dear friends, this is now my second letter to you. I have written both of them as reminders to stimulate you to wholesome thinking." If you ever want to join us on the Wholesome Thinking podcast, please contact us on Instagram, TikTok, or our YouTube channel. Our handle is Wholesome Thinking Pod on all platforms. We encourage everyone to reach out to us, not only to join us, but to provide us feedback or tell us about other topics you'd like to hear us talk about on this platform. Our main rules on this platform are commitment, creativity, no cursing, prayer, and no judgment. We appreciate everyone for tuning into the live stream today. Today I'm here with Spence, JG, and Rashad. How y'all doing this week, fellas?
Doing excellent, man. Glad to be here as always. See y'all boys again. I feel like it's been a long time. I've been gone for a week. I know we didn't record, but it seems like it's been a while since I've seen y'all.
Facts, though. It's been a minute, bro.
Welcome back, Shad. Good to see y'all boys again. Another night to pod.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes,
Glad
sir.
to be back with y'all today, man. Shad, welcome back. Look refreshed, rejuvenated.
Boy,
You know what I'm
got a tan,
saying?
JG.
Tan in there.
Hey, I ain't part of the beige man society right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, it's good seeing y'all boys, man. As y'all can see, everybody tuned into the live stream. Today we want to do things a little bit different. We want to do question and answers today. Rashad is going to guide us through a couple of questions that all of us will end up answering individually and as a group, as you all may know, and have tuned in to other episodes. This episode will be also recorded, so they're released on Friday. So you'll be able to run it back if need be. So Rashad, without further ado, bro, what questions do you have for us today?
Absolutely. I just want to first give a shout out to everybody that submitted questions to us. We really appreciate it. We want you to continue to do so. I know we said on the pod, if you want to join or if you have questions for us, please submit them. So please continue to do this. May not be the only time we do this. So I appreciate all of those that have already submitted questions to us. But, let's go ahead and get right into it. So I have a question for you. I'm going to just call out the question. And I'm going to call one of you all out to answer it. And then, kind of play it like that. So first question I got here is, what keeps you motivated on your growth journey? And what encouragement do you have for the people who maybe sometimes lack motivation? Spence, go ahead and answer that for us, man.
Absolutely. I think this is a loaded question. Because when I saw the question, I thought back to when I was growing up. What kept me motivated on my growth journey was my younger brother. He would always look up to me. Everything I did, he would copy. If I wore a hat, he wore a hat. If I got Jordans, he got Jordans. If I played football, he decided to play football and basketball and vice versa. So growing up, it was my younger brother. I wanted to set a good example for him. I knew he was watching me, and also there were people in the community that was watching me when I was growing up, family in the church. So I know had a lot of eyes on me. So that's one thing that kept me motivated. And as I got older, that kind of stayed with me. My family kind of keeps me motivated because they've sacrificed a lot for me to be here, to be able to go to college and do the things I'm able to do now. So they keep me motivated as I continue to grow. I want to be able to, they poured into me when I was younger, so be able to use what they poured into me in my life now to show that they did well raising me. I want to be not a good example, but just show that that I learned what they poured into me. So that keeps me motivated on my growth journey. Now that I'm married, it's my wife. I want to be the best husband, best version of myself for her, and the life that we're trying to grow and build together. And also that I know that as I continue to grow, I don't like to get complacent. There's always something I can learn from other people as I grow. I don't feel like I'm a know-it-all. There's always something I can learn, change as you go through life. You can constantly evolving and changing. So there's always something you can learn, always something you can get better at. So that always keeps me motivated. Not being complacent with where I am currently, but also being able to give myself grace to see where I started from and where I came from. And encouragement for people that kind of lack motivation: find your why. Why do you do the things that you do? My why is my family and my wife. So that's the reason I do the things that I do, for them, and not only for myself. And also try finding your purpose, what God has planned for you. That will help keep you motivated and do things that you enjoy. A lot of the times you're not motivated because you're not doing things that you enjoy. For example, a job. If you're on a job that you don't like, you're not going to be motivated to do it. So find things that brings you joy, peace, love in your life, and most of the time you'll find motivation within that. You'll want to be motivated to grow, to keep doing that, and to keep trying to chase your goals, your dreams, your aspirations.
Love that. I love that answer there, Spence. Appreciate you. And while you were saying it made me think about two books. One book was Start With Why, and another book was The Purpose Driven Life. And it's kind of what you mentioned: find your why and find your purpose. So I want to ask you a follow-up question to that, Spence, just kind of going to that, right? Because I know you mentioned like your family helps you stay motivated, trying to do everything you can for your family, for your wife. Has there ever been times for you personally, like where you felt like it's just been hard for you personally to stay motivated? Like just trying to accomplish a goal or something like that, ever a time where it's just been, even for you, because I know you said like, you know your why, you know your purpose, but has there ever been a struggle for you ever to stay motivated?
Absolutely. Definitely. And great question, because I didn't touch on that. Yeah, it's going to be times where you you're not feeling it. To use an example of athletes, there's sometimes it's a game and you're just not feeling it that day. You wake up, you just going through the motions, and you don't have that juice behind you. And sometimes when I'm feeling that way, or feeling that lack of motivation, or falling in a routine where I'm getting complacent and not motivated to keep going, I try to step away, to refocus, to recenter, to to come back to neutral, because a lot of the times I find that when I lack motivation, I start to lose focus. That's when I find myself losing motivation, is when I lose focus on what I'm trying to attain, the goals that I've set, and what I'm trying to reach. So when that time comes, like we talked about on the previous podcast, I find time for rest, so I can refocus, recenter, talk to God, pray, so I can refocus and get back on track to where I'm trying to the goals, and that growth mindset that we've talked about on episodes, and kind of find that mentality.
I love it. I love it. Because I know I can already think of probably of a moment, man, when you were probably doing your high rock challenge. And I'm sure probably there was plenty of times where you had to get your training in where you just weren't even motivated, man. You probably like, look, one of the things I heard was motivation gets you going, discipline keeps you going. And I know sometimes, like you said, it's hard to, but you have a goal at hand, or you have something you want to accomplish, or something that God's put in your heart. And sometimes it just takes discipline to keep going for it. So, nah, man, I appreciate that. Any of y'all want to add anything to that one? Because I feel like we all deal with motivation in some kind of form or fashion as well. So,
Hold on,
Real,
Smith's trying to say something else. Go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead,
real
Smith.
quick, it's funny you mentioned high rocks, 'cause I felt that lack of motivation after the first week of training. I'm not even gonna hold you. I was like, me and my wife was like, what did we get ourselves in? What did we sign up for? What did we pay for? And it also happened mid race. Rail was there. Um, we got approached by a judge trying to throw us off my game, and I was like, man, me and my wife, we got to talking. It was like, we might as well just walk out right now, not even finish it, cause I could hear Rail shouting from the sideline, block out the noise, Spence, block out the noise. And that helped me to refocus during the race. But I was I was about to quit right there in the middle of the race, because The ref was getting in my head. He talking while I'm trying to compete, and I was like, man, is this even worth it? I'm gonna just leave right now and not even finish. But that definitely, it's funny that you brought that up because, man, that was a trying time for sure.
Hey, block out the noise. I think that right there is the key point from that, because I didn't even know that part of the story that you're about to like walk out from it. So, hey, shout out to you, Rel, for reminding him to block out the noise, because I think that's something that's important too, that happens a lot of the time when people get started with something is we're excited, we're motivated to do something or pursue something with people or by ourselves, and then there's noise that comes, and the noise honestly is what stops us from accomplishing what it is. It's the noise, it's the distractions, it's the stuff like that that are those obstacles or roadblocks that we didn't anticipate. And I think that really starts to put a like a damper on our plans, in the sense where, man, like you said, is it even worth it to continue? So I appreciate you sharing that, man. Anybody want to share something before I got the next question?
Nah, I like what you said, Shy, and I appreciate you sharing that too, Spence. I think a lot of the times, if you don't have that support around you to help keep you motivated, I think it's tough. But I think it's easily to block out the noise is just other distractions as well. It ain't just actual like physical noise that you're listening to or hearing. Just maybe certain things for certain people you're dealing with in life, certain obstacles you may be able to face. But I think, like Spence said, like just being able to stay motivated is tough when you don't kind of have a team, and just being able to encourage you and hold you accountable. I think Spence didn't highlight it, but he held himself accountable throughout training for the High Rocks as well. He does that on a consistent basis too. And I think when you kind of associate, talking about that power of association episode as well, it just takes you to the next level. It takes you to the next phase of life too. And you just able to accomplish different things. But just also understanding that you need God on your team too, to help you get through that stuff is different. It's a different type of Olympic team that you about to be a part of, man. So that's all I wanted to add. But appreciate you, Spence. That was some real good insight and perspective, bro.
Absolutely. And then just a last point, it's not easy. You're not always going to be motivated. You're not going to wake up every day ready to go get it. It's going to be some days because we're not perfect. It's going to be some days where you don't have it, but you got to push through those days. You got to push through it, have that growth mindset to keep going, to keep pushing, because eventually that the feeling when you get to that goal and that aspiration that you want to achieve, that feeling is undeniable.
Sure, for sure. Appreciate you, man. Hope that helps a lot of people. Before I go to the next question, I just wanted to let everybody know, like, once the recording comes out, make sure if there's a question that you love that you want to go back and listen to, make sure you go down to the details of the podcast. I will have the timestamps for you for each question that we have here. So if there's something like, man, you want to hear this over and over again, you'll have those timestamps for you, so you know exactly where you need to go to for that, as well as some of these resources that we shared. Like I mentioned 2 books already, and we'll probably mention some other resources throughout the night. You'll have those in the description as well for you to reference those if you want to check those out. So with that, man, we'll go to question number 2. How do you know when God's calling you toward or away from something? And how do you differentiate his voice from your own desires? JJ, you want to take that one for us, man?
For sure. For sure. I'll take that. So, this is an interesting question. I think it is kind of hard to know when God is calling you towards something or away from something. And I think it starts with consistently seeking his will, consistently reading the word, and submitting your life, your thoughts, your actions, and your heart to him, and just making it a habit of saying, God, take control. A lot of this has to kind of do with you got to kind of be fed up with, to a degree, you got to be fed up with the things that you have experienced and trying to do things on your own. I think that's kind of how it went for me, where I just kind of came to the end of my rope, so to speak, and became fully aware that there were things that I wanted to do that I was not capable of doing in my own strength. I didn't know at first that I needed to turn to God and submit my life to him, but it was one of the first places I looked, because I just kind of had that foundation from earlier in my life. And so that was kind of what I turned to. And that was where I was able to find answers. So I guess one of the things you have to be aware of is how God speaks to you, or how God speaks to us. And I've seen this broken down into 4 ways that he speaks: through the Bible. So you're reading the word, studying the word. He can speak to you through that. Through prayer, in the circumstances you find yourself in, and through his people within the church. The church being the body of Christ, not necessarily a physical building, but also if you are a part of a church and there's people within that church community where you might find yourself, and he can use them to speak a direct message to you. Coincidentally, I have experienced all of these, and so I can verify that this is true. I think that's kind of where it starts, is like knowing how God can speak to you and seeking that out. So you kind of seek that out by reading the Bible, trying to be consistent in reading the word every single day, or often. You want to pray and talk to him that way, and also listen while you're in prayer. You want to be aware of the circumstances that you're in. God has spoken to me in numerous circumstances. I know I've talked on the pod about my car situation that I was going through late last year into early this year. God was speaking to me through that whole time throughout that. And there was different circumstances where he would speak to me. It's just kind of like steering me in the right direction. If I was going kind of off the path a little bit, he would redirect me and get me back in alignment with his will. And then I know I've shared the one where I had the encounter in church, and I had a woman prophesy over my life one day after a church service. So I think it's important to be in a setting where you can hear the teaching of Jesus, where you can see him change lives. And I had that experience years ago, where I had seen the power of Jesus in different people's lives and how they transformed, I mean, like seemingly overnight. And then I experienced that same thing myself. It wasn't overnight, but it was quick in comparison to how long I was doing some of the things I wasn't supposed to be doing. It's also important to know that, like, we are expected to act on what we know. God expects us to act on what we know. Now, your knowledge can be limited as far as the Bible is concerned, which is why when you're seeking to hear his voice and get direction on something, a good place to start is in the Word, right? Is with reading the Bible. It's there that we kind of learn. We learn about the character of God. We learn about how he deals with other people in similar situations and circumstances. What did they do? How were they delivered? How did they communicate with God? How were they obedient to God? What did that look like? All of those things you can study in the Word. And as you study, you're learning. You're learning more about God. You're learning about how he communicates and how he loves and deals with his people. And then you realize that is how he wants to have a relationship with you, so that you can be in the same boat as far as how he's communicating. You want to be counted as one of his people. You want your name to be in the Lamb's Book of Life. So once you take those steps to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and that God raised him from the dead, that's where you're starting your true faith walk, and that you're beginning that relationship with him. Okay, and now you're going to learn as you study the Word and learn more about your faith and learn more about your Savior, who you have entrusted your eternity with. The more that you learn, you're expected to act on that. So in other words, faith is more than just saying you believe something. It's more than words. You're expected to put action behind your faith the more that you learn about the God we serve. And so to go back to the question, let's see, how do you differentiate his voice from your own desires? This is actually a layup. This is pretty easy. So in my experience, when God wants to move me to a different level spiritually, or when he wants to get my attention to show me something, he usually asks me to do something that I wouldn't normally want to do myself. He'll usually ask me to give up something that I enjoy, whether it be like a convenience or a comfort, something like that. He will ask me to give that up and submit that to him and trust him instead of whatever the thing is. One example was basketball. I've loved basketball. I played my entire life, studied, watched the game over the years, and really did everything I could to play basketball for as long as I could competitively. When that was over, I switched into coaching mode, and that, much like playing competitively at a high level, requires a lot of time, energy, and effort. I was willing to do that. I was willing to make those sacrifices personally and at times professionally to pursue coaching and still be involved with the game in a meaningful way. So I dedicated a lot of my time, a lot of my life to that. And when God asked me to step away, that was not easy. It was almost like I wasn't sure that I wasn't sure that was him at first. I was like, why am I feeling like I need to step away from basketball? That's weird. Like, this was a gift. It was a gift to even be involved with it for so long. But God was calling me into a new season in life. And, I had the option to continue coaching, but he was asking me to give it up for something greater. And I had to go forth in faith with that because I really didn't see how not coaching, not helping people grow and develop in the game of basketball was something that I needed to give up. I didn't see what the benefit was of that. So I really had to step out in faith and just really trust God on that one because it wasn't something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to step away from the game. I didn't want to make that sacrifice. But, I did, and I'm very happy I'm glad that I did. And God has kind of shown me some other things in my life that needed my attention, that he wanted to grow me in those areas. And I couldn't be happier with the decision. I do miss basketball. I miss coaching, but in the long run, or even in the short term, because it hasn't really been that long, it's been extremely beneficial for myself, for my spiritual development and growth, for my family, and it's just brought us an amount of clarity. So another example I could give quickly is, fasting. I will tell you straight up, it is not in my nature to I don't like diets. I enjoy a good meal. I have favorite meals that we put in the rotation for week to week when we're getting groceries and planning. So I am not one to willingly step away from the foods and the things that I like in that arena. I would rather eat what I want to eat and just work it off. That would be my approach. If it was my choice, I would just, not without getting too crazy, of course, but like if I'm gonna have a burger and fries, it'd be like, okay, I'm gonna just hop on the treadmill the next 3 days and go a little bit harder in the gym and then just kind of get back even. You know what I'm saying? That would be my approach. Certainly, by no means would I have ever envisioned myself willingly giving up food and just drinking water for 1 day, let alone 3 days straight. But God, I felt, was calling me to do that, and he wanted to show me something in that and wanted to help me grow spiritually as a result of that. And so, again, like me not eating, it's intermittent fasting is something that I'm like, so anything longer than that certainly was something that I made a sacrifice for, as to just for my spiritual development. So a lot of times your desires, when they are not aligned with God's will, is going to feel like something that you don't want to do. So that would be kind of an easy answer. And then you just kind of look for whatever you're feeling led towards or called towards. Just look for, match it up with scripture. Just find it in the Bible and verify it that way, rather than, that's going to be probably the easiest way to verify that God is calling you to something, is finding it in scriptures and meditating on that and praying on that. So for fasting, Jesus was giving instructions on fasting. He said, when you fast, not if you fast. So we as believers and followers of Christ are called to fast. It's not an option. It's something that we should definitely do periodically. Again, I think it would start with you're feeling led to do something that you don't necessarily want to do, and then you turn to God's word to verify that this in fact might be God trying to speak to you or bring you closer to him in that way.
Shy, real quick, because I want to ask JG something. The gift part of your life, realizing that you played professionally, you played at the collegiate level, you done all the things that every black boy wants to do in America. Honestly, if we being real, at least 80%. You know what I'm saying? And you being able to fulfill that dream. Talk to us a little bit more about like finding out that I gotta give up this gift and then to receive other gifts that you really didn't know that you were blessed to have. Because a lot of times we just think that we just have one gift and we've been supposed to do that our whole lives, and then God abruptly may stop us in our tracks and be like, hold on, like I need you to do more, so I'm placing this responsibility on your life as well to carry out this message for me. How did that process feel, bro?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if I'm being honest about it, there were signs there that I needed to, at the very least, take a break. And I don't think that it started out, honestly, as like the first time I felt like I needed to take a break or step away, I actually went back to coaching in a different role. I was a head coach at a local high school and just kind of felt tired, worn out, and just felt like, it was maybe time to have a different voice or somebody else lead the program. And so, I stepped away. And I think at the time, I didn't really have plans to, coach the following season. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I just knew that I didn't want to be in the capacity of a head coach. And then I ended up taking a job as an assistant coach. And it felt like, again, it was less on my plate, but I still felt like I was supposed to maybe step away, like a little bit more intentionally from the game for a longer stretch of time. And so, yeah, I didn't know really what God was trying to show me with that at first. Like you mentioned, I kind of had set these goals from early on and achieved them. And then I just wanted to stay involved with the game for as long as possible. And I thought that that was something that God wanted me to do because he did, in fact, bless me with not only the ability to play at a high level, but also just the mind to kind of think the game, teach it, and try to like share some of the wisdom and knowledge and experience that I had over the years with the younger generation of Hooper. And so it wasn't easy, but I thought that like initially it felt like he just was like, just clear your schedule. Like just make room for me and what I ask. You don't need to know what I like. I don't think he tangibly said this to me at the time, but I distinctly remember having a feeling of just like, make your schedule more open. And one way to do that is to not be involved with basketball as a coach, for the foreseeable future. And, I kind of understood what that would open up given the time commitment of coaching and everything like that. So I just didn't know what, if anything, was going to fill that time other than time with my family and kind of being with the kids, getting them to and from their activities and things like that. But other than that, I was like, I'll just be like kicking it at the house, like doing stuff around the house, like chilling with my wife, spending more time with the kids, playing with them, and not having to steal moments, so to speak, in between practices and obligations with basketball. So it was only later that God really revealed like what he had for me, like some of the plans that he had and some of the interests that I've had over the years. He was like, I'm going to use you in these interests that you've always had for my glory and to bring more people to me and bring more people into the kingdom. And again, that was after I made the commitment to totally step away. And it's interesting that he really was like, it really required me to make that full commitment and to say, yeah, I'm not going to like have difficult conversations with, people I'm close with and people I care about. I mean, people that were dependent on me to have those tough conversations and really commit to stepping away, even though I didn't know what he wanted, why he wanted me to step away and what he wanted me to do with that time. But once I was, fully committed to that and just kind of was like, hey, I'm here, I'm ready, then he started to reveal some stuff. So that's kind of like a little bit of an overview of how the process went. There was a lot of uncertainty, and there still is, but if I was certain about everything, it wouldn't require faith, right? So it's like if I knew what was around the corner every time, if I knew everything that God was leading me to in great detail, then it wouldn't be me having faith in Him and His plan. So I'm happy to be in the dark because He's given me, and He'll give you confirmation along the way, right? Like He's not going to just completely leave you in the dark. There will be signs of things that, like, if you're wanting that next step, I want to be careful with like what I say. But if you are making room for God, even without knowing what that looks like or what the details of that are, you have to be willing to submit everything, even things that you are holding. Like there might be some stuff that you're holding on to that's just like, God don't want this. You don't know what God wants until you ask Him and you're open to hear His response. Like your heart got to be in the right place. If you're holding on to something and you're like, I'm gonna just keep this tucked, I'm gonna keep this in the tuck, away from God. Like, I mean, you're really only like fooling yourself. But He's not, in most cases, He already know. He's not gonna force you to do that, right? Like that's not how a relationship with Him works. He's not gonna force you to do anything. You have to willingly submit your heart and your life and your all. And remove anything that would get in the way of His rightful place in your heart and in your life. So when you are truly ready to put Him first, and He will know that, then He'll start to communicate those things to you. But there can't be any idols or anything that's taking God's place in your life.
I like that. I appreciate that follow up, Tora, because I was trying to think of questions as we go on, and he was answering every question as we was going on. So I do want to, and I'm going to use some adjectives very lightly, and I'm going to use them lightly because they don't define you, but they may define somebody else. And specifically, you mentioned that you get confirmation along the ways, or sometimes you don't even know what you have to give up. Like you don't even know what God's going to ask for, right? So, for example, basketball, and I said, let me use it lightly. Basketball was like your life, like that was like your identity, and to just in a sense give it up is almost like giving up an addiction, right? Because that is something that everything was built around. So when you're not getting confirmation, I guess what I want to ask is how do you keep going in giving up that identity, that idol, that addiction, that whatever, when you're not getting confirmation right away? Like how do you said you didn't know like why God wanted me to get rid of basketball at the time, but you just knew I needed to free my calendar up, and I started spending time with my wife. But before you were getting those confirmations and stuff, how did you continue to let go of something that you've been so involved with your entire life? I guess for you and for anybody listening, how can they know, like, maybe someone has to give up alcohol? Maybe that is something that God's calling them, like, it's time for you to give up alcohol, but it's something that they do every week, every day, maybe. So how do you, without getting your confirmation, how do you really like continue to have faith and trust? Like what was it for you that you did to really stick with it, to know that, God, this is the right thing I'm doing by letting basketball go, to making sure I free the time and knowing that the confirmation's coming?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I think it starts with having honest conversations with those you're closest with, and then having moments of self-reflection where you can be honest with yourself. And I think in addition to seeking God and His Word in prayer time and just being intentional about putting Him first in your life and drawing closer to Him, you just really have to be open to that whisper, that that whisper, the voice of the Holy Spirit that's kind of telling you which direction you should go. So another example with basketball is like, even when I stepped away from coaching, I continued seeking out opportunities to play pickup, maybe like once every 2 weeks or something like that, once a week. And I can't remember specifically, but I felt like, man, did God mean give up basketball completely? And that thought right there was like, well, he said basketball. He didn't say coaching. It was like, give up basketball and make room. So if I'm still planning my schedule around playing pickup in the afternoon or evening, I don't know what God wants me to do with that time yet. Now, in hindsight, I know like some of the things I'm doing now and being involved in like small groups and communities with, from the church that I attend. I know that like my evenings were supposed to be open for that purpose. But at the time, I wasn't involved in any yet. I really hadn't taken that step to kind of get connected in that way to the community. And so I was still like saying, well, I got all this free time now. I can I can go hoop. Like, I don't have a practice. I don't have workouts I need to attend. Like, I can kind of go like if my body feel good and just try to get a run. And I remember there was one time I went and there was like man, y'all know how I get sometime in an intense pickup game where it's like, they fouling and they're not giving you the point, right? So, I fouled you on the floor, fouled you before you shot it, this, that, the third, this. So like, I think every one of us has been a part of, what I'll call a standoff where like there was a play and it was like, okay, well, I made the shot, so ain't no foul. Go down the other end. The other team said, no, I fouled you on the floor. They hold the ball. So now it's like one of us gotta concede, right? Because the game is literally being held up. Like, they got the ball, the other team got the ball, my team down on the other end of the court waiting for them to check up. They down there still arguing with nobody, right? This went on for like 10 minutes, which I think is like a little bit excessive for, like, we've all been in those situations. Not many of them go 10 minutes or more. Like, that's a little excessive to me. And I'm thinking like, so I'm sitting here like, man, like, I'm trying to get home before the kids go to sleep. Like, this is the evening. Like, I got to get home. Like, I'm not trying to miss bedtime messing with y'all like over a foul call. Like, I was just trying to play 2 or 3 games and get out of here and go eat dinner and be with my family. And so I eventually just ended up walking out, and they tried to be like, nah, man, it's just like, it's just a standoff, man. This ain't like, we gonna keep playing. I said, man, y'all got it. I'm good. And I distinctly remember having a feeling of like peace. Like, when I walked out the gym and went, I think I ran for like a mile on the treadmill, and then I went, showered, and left. But I just had this distinct feeling of peace. And what my first thought was, well, like, at least I didn't get injured. I was like, that could have ended with me or somebody else getting injured, right? And then we had to deal with that. And I always felt like that was God kind of confirming like, this is the right decision. And then I don't think I played pickup in that gym since that day. If I'm remember, like, I shot around in there with my son, but like, as far as like going to play pickup with that group of guys, I don't think I've been back since that day, because I just didn't feel like there was a couple reasons. I felt like, I'm not myself. Like, I just like, it brings out too much of the old me when I'm in there, where I'm just like, I don't really want to be in that space where I'm competitive like that in those type of pickup games. It's just like not something, I don't think that like when my head is in that space, it's not matching where my body is right now in this stage of my life, where it's like, there's just stuff I can't do anymore. And I don't want to put myself in a position where I can't play with my kids. Like, and I'm in a boot or injured or rehabbing or doing whatever. Like, I just don't want to be in that position. And I just don't think it's worth it. And so I think that if I had even finished that game, Like there's a chance that maybe I was putting myself at risk. And so I just felt like a that sense of peace, just like a wave of peace just rush over me. Like you made the right decision, and like I was like, I'm not gonna go back. And so once I kind of that was like the last one of the last steps of like I didn't play. I don't think I played pickup again until the student or the senior faculty game at the school. Like I think that was the next time I played pickup. And even when it was coming up to that, they were like, "Are you gonna play?" I was like, "I don't know. Like, I got to see, got to talk to the father." So, yeah, I mean, it was just being like, again, it's like that was something I was trying to hold on to, right? It's like, okay, I'm not gonna coach. That way, I don't have to be in practice every day. But I mean, once every week, like once a week or once every 2 weeks is cool, right? And it was like, nah, because you trying to hang on, like let it all go. You know what I'm saying? And just give that up. Because if you want what you say you want, I'm going to show it to you, but you got to let all the rest of that stuff go. And so, and that was in hindsight, but at the time, it was me trying to hold on to a piece of that, what became an idol in my life with basketball. Started out as a gift. I turned it into an idol because I was sacrificing my time, energy, effort, my time with family, in addition to other things, to just still be involved with that. And it was time to make room for God to do something else in my life. So that's, I mean, him showing me also, a big part of it was him showing me that what was meant to be a gift from him, I turned into an idol. And you can see confirmation of that in the word all throughout the Bible, where things that God meant as a gift, people started worshiping the gift rather than the giver of the gift. And that's what I was doing with basketball. And once he revealed that to me, it kind of made it easier to walk away from all of that, knowing what I truly wanted deep in my heart was to be closer to him and was to serve him. So yeah.
Appreciate that. I think a major thing you said there was you took yourself out of the environments that made you tempted to do those things. Like you knew not to go back to the gym and stuff. So no, I appreciate that because that's the hard part, right? When you give up something is you got to remove like you said, remove everything from it. And sometimes it's associations, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's a place, sometimes it's an activity that you did. But if God wants you to get rid of something, you have to, like you said, get rid of it entirely. And that's everything that goes with it. So I appreciate that. Before we move to the next question, Trey, you gonna say something?
Yeah, I think we got a shot. I don't know what question you asked, but we had something in the chat. Yeah, I think that's Chris. He actually said being able to see the value between needs and wants. So I think that was an answer to one of your questions. You want to repeat that question and answer real quick?
Yeah. So the question that I asked was, how do you know when you need to, like, what's the confirmation that you have when you give yourself? How do you know you're doing the right thing when you're giving it up? And because you don't always see it right away, right? God doesn't give you the confirmation right away. So how do you know you're doing the right thing when you're giving up something that is of high value to you? Almost sometimes could be an addiction or something like that. And that was the question that I asked. So
All right. Okay. Okay. Well,
appreciate that.
yeah, appreciate you joining us today, Chris, man.
Absolutely. And for anybody else, if you have questions, make sure you put them in the chat. Terrell's taking a look at those, keeping an eye on them for those questions that we have.
Yep. Yep. Well, all right, Shada, we moving on to you next, brother.
Hold on, before we go to me, just for those that's listening, just want to let y'all know that Wholesome Thinking will be joining the warm up podcast on June 2nd at 7:30 a.m. So it is a morning show. The warm up, when your morning, when your day. He's been doing this podcast for about 2 years now. He's also created a book, and he's partnering with us, and we're happy to be joining him. So for any of you want to check us out on another platform as well, he has some great content there. It's the Warm Up Podcast, Win the Morning, Win the Day. And we'll be joining June 2nd at 7:30 a.m. We'll be live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram for that.
Yep, yep. Again, we appreciate everybody for tuning into the live stream today. And if you don't mind telling everybody, like, kind of how you got these questions from other people before we get into your questions for real.
Yeah,
because we missed that in
absolutely.
the beginning.
Yeah, so some of the questions have just come from people who've been listening to the podcast, and they just like, hey, like, y'all talked about this. I would love for y'all to really expand on this. You know, y'all didn't really touch on it as much as I wanted to. And they would send that question. And some of these questions are back from like episode 1 and episode 2 that we just held on to. And then some of these other questions are some people that always been giving me feedback from our podcast. And I just said, hey, is there any questions you want to ask the team? You know, I can't guarantee we'll answer it, but we'll love to take your questions and just, you know, maybe get an answer to you to elaborate a little bit more, get some more understanding or clarity on what you're trying to find out. So these questions came from multiple people, some that have already just submitted the questions to me, others that I actually asked for and said, hey, do you have any questions for the team? Because you're someone that's always, you know, telling us how great the podcast is, how much it's helping you grow and change. Is there something that we're not fully answering that maybe you want us to expand on? So that's how these list of questions came.
Word. All right, man. We appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you for doing that. All right, so your question, man, is how do we have the courage and social skills to go out and talk on a podcast like this or share the gospel with people that may be strangers? And the second part of the question is, how can an introvert overcome not wanting to share? So you got a two question there right there, man.
I got a two-parter. Cool. All right. So for the first part, how do we just go out and talk like this on the podcast or just share the gospel? I think one of the things that I've learned is if we know something is good for us and it's changing our lives, why would we withhold it from other people if it can do the same thing for others? All right. If we know the gospel, if we know what following Christ does for us, why would we not want others to do the same thing? And for me, that's just kind of how I function. I know what one with the podcast, but also just knowing and having a relationship with Jesus Christ does for us. And so because I know those things, I don't want to withhold those for myself, right? I think a term we hear is gatekeeping, right? We don't want to gatekeep that information or anything from people. We want other people to experience what we're experiencing in life. And so that allows me to go out and share. And we've heard so many different testimonies from people that have listened to our podcast where, you know, some people are going back to church. Some people are giving their life to Christ. Some people are just growing and developing into their careers and stuff just by listening to us bi-weekly. And so if I know that people are getting stuff like this out of that, or if I know that somebody is dealing with something like a challenge or something, and we've talked about it, I always look at it as all I'm doing is finding a need and filling a need. And that's what the podcast is. We're being need fillers, right? We're figuring out what's going on with people. How can we help people learn from our perspectives, and grow and heal in whatever they have that they're dealing with. And we're sharing that. Now, when it comes to sharing the gospel, never be ashamed to share the gospel, because the ultimate supplier of everything, the ultimate healer of everything is going to be Jesus. And so if that's the answer to fix everything that we need, then why would I not give you the answer that you need to help for that? And so for me, that it just made it always easy, because I'm never trying to sell anything to somebody. I'm never trying to sell our podcast. I'm never trying to sell Jesus. I'm just trying to share the good news. And the good news is the gospel. The good news is also the podcast for what we're talking about, right? Because I understand that everybody's not going to go to church, and but people can find Jesus any other way. And I know we've heard things like marketplace ministry and stuff like that, but I think sometimes our podcast fills that gap too, because people maybe don't go to church or listen to our podcast, but they hear the growth that we had. They hear our testimonies on the podcast, and that's their connection. That's their path. That's their door. And so if I know that can be the door for someone, I'm going to definitely go out and do what I can to just promote and share what we have, because I know it helps other people just as much as it helps all of us. And so when it comes to like an introvert, right? If an introvert wants to share, I'm gonna try to be nice with it, because I think we use introvert and extrovert wrong. People think an introvert is someone who just like doesn't talk to people. And I'm like, no, that's not what an introvert is. An introvert is someone that needs to be by themselves to recharge and stuff like that. They recharge by themselves, not in a group, compared to an extrovert who wants to be around people to recharge and things like that. But I feel even if you're an introvert, you're not trying to sell anything. You're just trying to share something that can help other people, right? Because I think a lot of the times you ask an introvert, they'll still say they love helping people. And sometimes helping is just giving information or just sharing knowledge. And I think sometimes when it comes to just presenting something that you want to present, something that you're passionate about, just share how it can fill a need. If someone's dying of thirst and you have a bottle of water and you can help them, you're going to give them the water bottle, right? You're just going to do what you can to help people. And that's the same thing with anything that you're sharing. I've never once talked to a stranger, and because I talked to him, he tried to fight me or something like that. That's never happened to me. And I mean, I've had crazy stories where I've talked to somebody and I complimented them on their shoes and we're having a conversation and I just walk off. And I'm just like, I didn't even finish the conversation with this person. But like, sometimes these people don't even realize, like, they're like 10 minutes later, they're going to forget about you. So if you're so like consumed with what are they going to think, a lot of times they're not going to think anything. If anything, they're going to think that they're grateful that you presented something to them that can help them and benefit their lives. And so for me, I'm never thinking of, man, is this a bad thing to share with somebody? No, because this can help them. This can help them more than it can hurt them. And I don't think it can hurt them at all. I don't think anything that we've talked about or shared, I think we just shared our stories, we shared our gifts, we shared our perspectives, and we shared what Jesus has done in our lives. And I think that's the best thing that we can do is just promote what we know. We're not, like I said, I'm not a master salesman out here. I'm not the most extroverted person that people probably think I am. I used to be terrified to speak to people one on one, but I had to work on it. I had to just go and just talk to someone every single day, just someone I didn't know, shake a hand, compliment somebody, and just build that courage and that confidence in myself to where I can speak to where people think maybe he might be an extrovert. Well, honestly, I used to be terrified. And so I just love going out and finding a need and filling a need and keeping that the perspective and realizing that our podcast, like I said, can be something that can be a need filler, but also sharing the gospel with them is the biggest need filler of all. So I appreciate that question.
You answered one of my questions in one of your last statements, but my question would be, have you faced challenges, or what are some challenges you face when you're going out and spreading the gospel, and how do you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I think there's times where I heard, the most basic answer we always hear is, "Oh, I don't believe in that." Like, nah, don't bring your imaginary person to me. I've heard all of it, right? And that's okay. I don't change how I am to someone based on their answer. I still love them because that's what I'm called to do. That's what I'm supposed to do. Um, but some of the challenges is people just don't want to hear it, right? And like I said, it's never no one's ever tried to fight me or nothing like that. If I talk about it, maybe they try to avoid continuing the conversation. And I think in those situations, I think there's times where you can tell someone's avoiding the conversation, and I'm not going to keep pressing the conversation if you're trying to avoid the conversation. If I'm stepping closer to you and you're taking steps back, that's not an invitation for me to continue taking steps forward, right? Because maybe this conversation isn't for you right now. Well, it is, but maybe you don't think it is for you right now. And if I keep trying to pressure you or push you to while I'm trying to share the gospel with you, and then that gives you a bad perspective or a bad taste in your mouth of that's how it's going to be, then I just did a disservice to you by not really giving you the space that you've wanted or the time that you maybe needed to get closer with God. And maybe it's not words that I say. Maybe the words that I say don't inspire you or have you move towards that way. Maybe it's the actions that I take. Maybe it's the side conversations you hear that I have with you all on the podcast that really resonates with them that gets there. It's not always a conversation. And if I get pushback from a conversation, I continue loving them the same way, right? Because I'm sure Jesus had plenty of pushback, and we see stuff in the Bible and doesn't change how he carried himself. And I'm not going to change the way I carry myself either. I know the truth, the way, and the light is, and I'm going to make sure I do what I can to be an example of being Christ-like, and I'm going to do everything I can to be a follower of Christ, and I'm going to showcase that in how I live. And I can do that without pushing that on you, and I can do that without um, trying to coerce you or convince you or persuade you or connive you, whatever adjective you want to use that you think I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to do any of that. And so just being a friend for people when people are negative, and continue to still love them and continue to be the example that I am. Don't change who I am because of how someone respond. Is basically how I address or handle those objections, or handle those conversations where people maybe don't want to really hear it.
No, that's real. I think Tushai, I appreciate you sharing all of that, bro. That was a great answer, man. I think like a lot of the times, my boy Ant say this all the time. Shout out to Ant. Like people got to be willing to lend like vulnerable energy, bro. And that's if you giving the information or receiving it. And if that's not there, I don't think like we can progress like with anything, with our faith, with conversations about stuff happening on this earth, stuff happening in the world just in general. I don't think we're able to progress. So now I really appreciate you sharing that and knowing, when to step forward and when to step back too. Cause like you can't keep stepping forward and it's like nothing happening. And I think we got to understand like it is difficult to like press things forward if it's not being received, or if there's some type of disconnect, and you got to be aware of that too, because especially when spreading the gospel or spreading the truth in general, man, like everybody's not going to agree with you, and you have to decide whether you could continue to drill this down and continue to repeat it, or you could just live it every single day and you'll be okay, and maybe they'll learn better once they see it. But a lot of the times, man, it's a disconnect with people, and I think that's going to happen when the truth starts getting involved. And it's tough. It's frustrating sometimes as well, because like it starts happening to people that you love. But that's why I think like we just got to be vulnerable. So nah, Shad, I really appreciate you answering that.
I appreciate that answer, Chad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rel, since you popped me with a question, I'm gonna send you a question your way now, man. I'm gonna
All
send
right,
one your way.
all right.
Uh, so let's see what question I got for you, sir. And I think this is a good question actually, because I think you've talked about this a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
um, question for you is, how do you deal with grief?
Mm.
And I know we mentioned the analogy with the boat. But how do we manage and also believe in such difficult times to know that we'll find land and not just floating in the ocean? So we back in the boat, bro.
You back in the boat. Oh man, dealing with grief in the boat now. Okay. How do I deal with grief? Y'all know I love talking about death, bro. Like y'all know when you go through something like that, like it's hard not to talk about it. And I hope that don't sound too demonic or, or low energy, you know what I'm saying? But now I love this topic. I think grief is something that we all have to experience and we all can relate to in different ways. I'll answer the first part of the question. Me dealing with grief, it's going to be different for every single person. I'm going to be real. I'm not going to lie about anything. I think that when you lose somebody close to you, when you lose a loved one, depending on how close they were to you, will differentiate your reaction and kind of how long you stay dwelling. Shout out to Tim Ross about the dwellers, bro. I think a lot of the times we can dwell in sadness and depression when we lose somebody, whether that's a spouse, whether that's like a parent, whether that's a friend, maybe from your childhood or somebody you just had a close relationship with. I think there's a lot of sadness. I don't think that I'm gonna be real, right? I'll give you an example real quick. I think Spencer and I have experienced certain losses that may affect us differently than JG and Shad. I think that me and Spence can relate to different things when it comes to that. Maybe you guys haven't yet. And so there's already not a lot of circles to talk about the conversations, because if I haven't lost a parent, I can't relate to you. So therefore I can't talk about it, nor can I give you any type of advice. So when you initially lose somebody, you're not trying to hear from anybody at all. I don't care if you the pastor. I don't care if you've been living righteous for 25 years. Like, I'm not trying to hear it. I don't want to hear anything about it. I don't want you to give me any type of platitudes about, yeah, they're in a better place. You're just not trying to hear it. You're blocking out all the noise. To Spence's example earlier, like when you lose somebody, bro, you just want that person back immediately. Like there's nothing that you want more in this world. There's no hug that can replace it. There's no fried chicken. Y'all know what happened with the fried chicken at the funerals and the black families. Like You gonna get the fried chicken, bruh. You getting all this fried chicken to the house. I just want my person back, bro. I don't want no chicken. I don't need no chicken in this house. You ain't even thinking about cooking, bro. Like, I'm being serious, bro. And it's everybody experience different, you know what I'm saying? If it's not fried chicken, it's some other type of food because everybody feel like you need to be comforted in that time. But like, but I'm gonna be real. You don't know what I need because you ain't going through what I'm going through, nor have you been through it, right? And so I've experienced a lot of death in my life, and I could honestly say it's fortunate because I wouldn't be able to understand it at this age if I lost somebody really close. I think it would kind of hinder some of the things that's going on right now, and it will put me in a different mindset immediately. But for the people that have lost a spouse, I think they may experience, and I can't relate to it. They may experience like the loss of routine, the loss of a daily conversation that we take for granted every single day, the loss of somebody's favorite meal that you may experience, the loss of maybe not getting to go to the store the same way. I can't even grocery shop the same way no more, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's a spouse. A parent, like, not being able to pick up that phone and talk to them ever again in life, bro. I know that has to hold so much weight on a person that, like, because a lot of the times you move away from the house that you was raised in, so a lot of those conversations are going to be on the phone. And when you lose that man, or you can't get there physically, you kind of got to rethink your process and, like, where is your new support going to come from? Who going to pour into your cup now? You lost all of that. And in those initial phases, you're not trying to hear nothing. And so when somebody lose somebody, bro, I just go and listen, bro, because there's nothing I could say. And I never forget, one of my friends lost his grandma, and I was like, look, man. He was like, what am I supposed to do? I was like, ain't nothing nobody could tell you. I can't tell you nothing. I can't tell you nothing right now. And I'm not going to pretend to tell you anything either because, bro, I never forget, I lost my grandma, and I was getting my master's. And my dad called me. He's like, hey, grandma no longer with us. But I stood in the classroom. Like, I sat down for like 3 or 4 seconds. Got up, went to the bathroom, and just fell down, bro. Thank God this girl came to get me, like, off the floor. I had to gather my thoughts, and I went back to class. He's like, man, you need to go ahead and you can leave if you want to. But in that moment, it's blurry. You're not thinking. It's almost like a concussion. If I'm being real, like a very bad concussion to where, like, you lose sight of where you are, and you just kind of going through the motions. You don't even know what you need. You don't know what you want. You just numb to the world, and you just woozy. But, like, a lot of the times, we need to get that CAT scan, bro, after a certain amount of time, bro, to see what's going on. Because if you're dwelling in it for too long, it start impacting different areas in your life. And if you don't have the right support around you during that time, it's going to be rough. It's going to be isolating. So that's the first part of the question that I wanted to answer. Shout out to anybody that has lost somebody, in the past 5 to 10 years, or just in general, that may be still experiencing some of those things when it comes to loss, because that's something that nobody's going to be able to tell you. They can't tell you nothing. I'll pray for you, but you got to keep your head up, and you got to push forward, and you got to start pressing into God. If you don't believe, cool, but you have to understand that there's a reason they've been taken from you, because something else is on the way. And I think we may take that for granted as well, because we like holding on to the earthly being so much that we forget about the spiritual realm. And that's a different part of the conversation. But to the second part about the boat analogy, we was talking about this. I don't even know what episode it was, Shad. That was a minute ago. It's come up on a couple of different episodes, but like the boat analogy is, you floating in the middle of the ocean. You don't have anybody around you. You know that you bleeding out internally, probably externally as well in the water. It's these sharks around you, and you in the middle of the ocean. And instead of fighting to swim to find land, you just end up being stagnant and numbing yourself and stay there. But then this boat come by to help you. You either refuse the boat, you reject it, you get in and stay too long. But then when it's time to swim again, you refuse to swim. And so for this situation is the boat is the same thing. I lose somebody. I fall into the middle of the ocean now. I got to start from scratch. I was on land. But, bro, sometimes I just wanted to let myself go. So I just walked into the water, and next thing I know, I'm floating in the middle of the ocean because I'm dealing with all this trauma, grief, and loss. And when you get to that point of floating, all you want is that person. So you floating to find the person. I'm floating I may be using drugs. I may be drowning myself in alcohol just to find that feeling, bro. It's tough though. So I can relate to it and understand. But God gonna sprinkle some people that want to give you that boat. And if you don't want to get on it, you can let it go. But he gonna keep sending it to you. And if you keep denying it, you may end up in a place that you'll never be able to see land ever again. And so it's going to take for you to actually take the help and support at some time in your life when you're ready, I think. Like realizing that, okay, I might be bleeding out too much. Like I really might be about to die. Like I'm doing too much that's impacting my life, impacting my loved ones. And I just want to, you almost kind of drowning yourself. And I think for the analogy of just keep swimming, after you jump into that boat, you get that support, you still got to do it by yourself. You can't really latch on to other people in that boat because they're only going to be there for a temporary time because they could die too. And then what you going to do when they gone? So you got to kind of figure out what your life about to be like in order to find that land in life. And so you may swim for years, but it's okay because you got to know that God is guiding you where he wants you to go. And there's going to be land in the future. And so I think you just got to be able to trust God to know that he's ordering certain steps in your life while you're swimming in order to guide you on the path. He's like the GPS that you need. But if you refuse to follow that GPS, you're going to get lost again. Just straight up. God going to keep telling you, hey, you need to turn around. You need to turn around, but you refusing it because you just like, you going through too much pain, bro. And the pain and grief, man, this conversation, I just love it because we all got to go through it. Nobody can't live on this earth and not go through it. But if you think your pain is non-comparable to anybody else or like nobody can relate, you got to chill because you're not Jesus. You ain't been through that pain. So what are you really comparing at that time? You get what I'm saying? But to people's points and to my point, you can't relate unless you've been through it, bruh. So like you gotta stop comparing. Like, what you don't understand. You don't understand what I'm going through, I do. I get that part of it, but you gotta find the next level of your life, or you could stay there and you could die not knowing just because you want to be with that person in the spiritual realm so bad. But God got specific assignments left for you while you living. And so that's being in touch with swimming to the land, because once you get there, you're going to know exactly what you need to be doing. But it's tough, bro. It's just tough. So that's a tough question. I hope I answered that for a lot of people that's listening. I think it's difficult, bro. Like I would have to relate it to like a quick concussion that you wasn't ready for in football. Like somebody blindsiding you and boom, they hitting the mess out of you and you don't know where you are. You paralyzed. You need to go to the hospital. But the hospital is the same thing as floating in the water. You can't stay in the hospital but a certain amount of time. That's not your place where you're supposed to be at. You got to go back home. You got to reorganize to get things in order. And you got to do things that you're not going to want to do. And that involves swimming to that land. So I hope that answered the question, bro.
Absolutely. And I have a follow-up question.
All right.
What is some things that you've learned while going through grief that will help you for the next time? Because me personally, I've lost 3 grandparents, 2 aunts, and each time I've learned something different to help me process those emotions, process that grief, to help me get through that pain, those tough times. So what's something you personally that you've learned going through grief and losing someone that will help you process those emotions the next time it happens? Because like you said, everybody has to go through it.
Shoot, same answer I gave Shad. Being able to be vulnerable enough to share what I'm going through and what I'm feeling with somebody else. And they got to let me know if they can't handle it, like if they don't appreciate me sharing or something like that. But I think being able to do that with certain people in my life helped me tremendously. And you don't even realize how God positioned people that can understand you, that you never thought would understand, bro. Like seriously, like he will start putting people in your life to say, hey, you know, I'm going to use this person to help you out. But if we just internalize and keep it to ourselves, we'll never know. We'll never know, because we're just thinking that it's only myself is going through this and I can't share this with nobody else because I don't want to trauma dump on them. I don't want to make them feel guilty for me or feel ashamed of me or embarrassed for me and this, that, and the third. And it's like, nah, man, like we got to talk about this because you just preparing the next person. that might go through something. Like if I didn't share something with JG Spence about the death that I was experienced, maybe he can't relate to it later on. Like, dang, Yerb did say this, bro, but I ain't know, and it's gonna hit him in waves. He gonna break down crying, but at least the conversation opened up something else for him that can bless him later. And a lot of the times when we go through that pain and loss, we scared to share. But like we don't know how many blessings we're blocking by not dialoguing and sharing this type of vulnerability with each other. And the stories, man, that's why the stories hit so different in the Bible. It's the same thing. God wanting these stories to be shared for a reason. Like we can't, like, bro, don't, I say this in the Keep It G call every time, like all the time, like, but don't let people know your story at the funeral and you ain't get to tell them when you was alive. That's not fair because somebody else telling it, not even from your perspective. And so now it's loose ends. It's missing details to the story. So like if I choose not to share that grief or pain that I've been through with somebody, to somebody, they may not get to understand it for themselves later on. I may be blocking a blessing, bro. And so that's why it's like those small groups, man, like people that have lost somebody, yo, there's people out here that need you to explain what happened to your situation. And a lot of the times, bro, the system just conditions our minds so much not to share that stuff, to keep it private so we're not victimized or like, what's the word I'm looking for? We're not, it's a way of like looking weak almost. Like I don't want to be weak because I got to protect my household and I can protect what's mine and protect my own peace. But it's like, bro, people got to hear this information, man, whether they like it or not. We all got to go through it. Somebody, and then sometimes you're going to have the opposite. You sharing your story about what happened to you in some type of death experience or some type of loss in your life and you dealing with your grief. And somebody could come to you and say, well, I lost 5 people in 5 months. Now you adjusting your perspective. And now it kind of uplifts you in a way as well. So there's a lot of motivation. And to circle back to the beginning question, I think that's what people need in those times is motivation and encouragement through dialogue about the pain and grief, Spence. So I hope that helped answer your question as well.
Absolutely, and I think the key point was you hit on was sharing your story, sharing your trauma, because keeping it internalized eventually is going to reach a breaking point, and then you don't know what's going to happen at that point. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you answering that.
Yes, sir. No doubt. No doubt. We'll be going next, Shad.
Yeah. Hey, and man, I was trying to think if I had a question, but that was just so beautifully said, bro. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, Spence, for that. So we're gonna wrap up with this final question, fellas. We got one more question. I'm actually the group, and this question is cool because I think this is one of the first questions that we've ever got from someone. And now just to think that we're 15 episodes in, and this is probably like a question from like episode 1 or episode 2 that we never really got a chance to answer, but here we are now. So I wanted to answer this one as a group. So I wanted everybody's perspective on it. And the question is, from your own perspective, what is discernment and what does it look like? And how did you get to the level where you are now to maybe say like, maybe this association isn't for you, or maybe these things aren't for you, or it isn't what God has for me. So I can either call on one of y'all. If one of y'all want to go ahead and go first on it, what does discernment, like, how do we get to the point where, because I know it's something we talk about all the time on the episode, and we got to have discernment, so what does it look like from your perspective to you?
I can go first, man. For me specifically, within the last probably year and a couple months, if that, I think it's just becoming a year of me understanding what discernment means to me. Like just being able to understand, to be aware of what's coming from God and what may not be coming from God in real time. I'm still working on that. That's a lot more difficult than it sounds. So apologies if it sounds like it's a breeze on the episodes that we talking about, because it's not. It's really not. Like being able to really pray for discernment and letting the Spirit guide my decision making, what I'm hearing, and what I'm speaking out into the world. And sometimes when I speak certain things, I'm like, oh, that might not have been the Spirit. That might not have been God telling me what to do. You know what I mean? And if it's not love, kindness, joy, and peace, it really might not be from God, along with amongst a lot of other good things. And so that's what I pay attention to, and the things that I'm thinking. Like if any type of negative thoughts, I know that's not from God. So being able to discern that, okay, who's putting these thoughts in my mind? Is it really from God, or is the enemy trying to get to me, right? And I just think like a lot of the times it's difficult if I'm not practicing and reading the scriptures or praying consistently. I could tell that my discernment I start lacking it, and I may get into situations to where I'm like, oh man, I know where I kind of messed up now, and let me retry again. It's a daily thing. It's not like it's like for just big decisions. The small decisions, you got to show some discernment. And you got to understand what's God in your heart and your mind and your thoughts. And I think the soil of your heart episode is kind of where I really start digesting, like, yo, how I show up is showing discernment, and how I interact with people is a way of showing discernment on how I engage, what I talk about, what I bring to the table, and what I take away from it, and what I put out into the world as well. So that would be my answer to the first part of the question. The second part was what again?
How do you know, like when you're discerning things, if maybe people are for you or things are for you, or maybe saying like this isn't what God has for me?
That's interesting. I would say I made a abrupt change in my life probably when I came back from Dallas. I talked about that. I think that was right before the men's retreat. Me and my boy Ant went to Dallas to visit my boy Lamont, and I had to really decide. I used to really believe that everybody can go to the same places, man, and in Dallas I understood it like, yo, this isn't true. This isn't true, and I just got to be thankful for the people that God has placed in my life to help me understand that, and some people that's helped discipling me in this current time of my life as well. You got to understand that God starts, again, like I guess he starts sprinkling some people in your life that you can't deny. And when those people talking about the word and spreading the gospel and then breaking down different things that apply to their life and how they was transformed, then you got to know that like it's something greater beyond you that you got to start listening to and tapping into. And I think once you start practicing it is when the discernment starts to build. And then I was just talking about this on the Wednesday call too. Somebody had asked, did you like the monster that you became during your transformation when you becoming laser focused, whatever God telling you to do pretty much? And I was like, I don't think I've thought about it like that, but I will say I probably have hurt some people in that monster phase, so to speak. Just being super laser focused, making sacrifices, maybe not talking to the same people I was at one point in my life. And I just broke it down like at the end of the day, if I'm addicted to drugs is another example. I think I told Jerron this, right? And I was like, all right, if I'm addicted to a certain substance and I quickly try to stop cold turkey, I'm gonna go through some withdrawals. But going through the withdrawals in the process is me focusing on where I'm wanting to go. If I quickly decide to not discern, I could choose to go the other way and just do the drug again, honestly. But once I get that clarity after that monster part of making that withdrawals in my life, going through that withdrawal symptoms, I only got to go to rehab for a certain amount of months, bro. It's temporary. And I could choose to come out of there with clarity, or I could choose to go back to the things I was doing. And I think the discernment is, well, when you was doing the other thing, well, all these other things happening in your life, or when you was doing this new thing, well, these things happen in your life. And you got to choose. So to me, that's discernment, bro.
I appreciate that. No, I know that's something that I think this question is going to help a lot of people, because we do talk about it a lot, and maybe sometimes people don't really, or maybe new on their journey, don't really know what discernment is for them. And I know for me, when I was getting stronger in my faith walk, is really understanding what discernment was for me. And for me, it was understanding just getting into prayer and really understanding like whose voice am I listening to when I'm making that decision. And for me, sometimes prayer is just sitting there in silence, just maybe not even me saying anything. Maybe it's me sitting there in a sense meditating on just trying to be still and in the moment and just hear and let my thoughts run with what God is putting into my head for those thoughts. And I think especially when it comes to maybe getting rid of things or people are removing people, when I'm looking for discernment around that, I find that if I'm justifying keeping something in my life, that's that's like discernment for me, knowing that that's from my flesh. If I'm creating like Jesus and God is not putting those reasons in my head of why these people need, no, they're telling me to remove X thing from me. But if I'm trying to find reasons to justify, that's me going against what I need to be doing. And so for me, it's easier for me to let things go, or no, I need to let things go, because if I try to justify why I'm keeping it in my life, then I know that that's something that shouldn't be there regardless, right? If I'm in prayer and I'm hearing that I need to remove this association, this friend or something, this person, and I know all of the bad things that maybe they're doing, that they're having a negative influence on me, and I know it, and we see it, and then we go into prayer about it, and then I sit there and say, but I've known them for 10 years, or they've always had my back. How would it look like if I just left on them? That's not from God. And so that's how I know, when I start going into that mode, then I know I need to be doing the opposite of what that mode is, because that's evil talking. That's my flesh talking. That's the opposite talking, telling me, trying to convince me to keep what I need to get rid of. And honestly, I think that happens to a lot of people, when you're making big changes in your life, because change is hard, and God may be telling you to do one thing, but for your flesh, it's hard. It's hard to beat your flesh sometimes, and you start justifying. Your flesh starts talking, and your flesh starts telling you it's not that bad. You can keep that, but really, no, it is that bad. This is why God was telling you to remove it anyway. And so for me, it's just being in still, and then being aware if I notice I'm starting to justify certain things, when something's supposed to be removed. And that's when I'm like, all right, that's something that I have to go ahead and get rid of, because there's not any good reasons of why I should be keeping this, other than the reasons that I'm trying to convince myself or convince my spirit of. And so for me, it's sitting there and pray, and the answer isn't always there. The answer isn't always immediate for me. Sometimes I sit there a couple of days. Sometimes I sit a couple of weeks. Sometimes I make mistakes because I do the wrong thing before I get another chance. And then I realize that, okay, the mistake that happened was God telling me, like, hey, no, I told you to do it this way the first time. This is your second chance. And so for me, like, when I get into prayer and I just really focus and try to listen to his voice, that's when I can really hear the answers that I need to hear and have the discernment that I need to have.
I appreciate you sharing that, shot. And for me, I think it started with my parents and how I was raised. I think they instilled in me the discernment, the value, the foundations, specifically by raising me in church and teaching me those fundamental principles of God and Jesus and the Bible, and the different the lessons that you can get from going to God and reading the Bible and going in prayer. And I can distinctly remember examples when I was growing up, when I was stressing about a test. My mom would say, pray to God. God will give you the right answer. He will lead and guide you. Take it to God in prayer. Or when I was making a decision about college, my mom, pray about it. My parents tell me, pray about it. As I graduated college and was applying to different jobs, they tell me the same thing. Pray. Go to God in prayer. Pray about it. So I can honestly thank my parents for putting that foundations, those principles in me from an early age, to where now that I'm grown, I still lean on those foundations that my parents used to raise me. And it hasn't always been easy, because there's been times where I didn't use discernment in college. There were times where I would blatantly just disregard it, just disregard what God was saying, telling me that, Spence, you know this ain't for you. You know this ain't what your parents, how your parents raised you. But I'm blowing right through the stop sign. So shout out to my parents, and when me being able to discern what people and things aren't for me is my foundations. What do you stand on? What's your standard? You won't know if something's not for you if you don't know what you stand on. You don't know what your standard is. So how do you know what's for you if you don't have that foundation to know, yeah, this is what I believe in. This is what I'm gonna stand on, and this is not it, or this is it. And I gave the example of the box analogy. I have a box. If you align with my foundation, my standards, my values, what I believe in, you're inside the box. And if you don't, you're outside the box. That don't mean I love you more or love you any less. It's just you don't align with where I'm going and where I'm trying to go in life. And so, yeah, shout out to my parents, man. They I can't thank them enough for instilling those foundations and principles in me in a younger age.
Hey Spence, I appreciate you sharing that, bro. Like, especially having parents in your life. You know what I'm saying? All of our lives, technically all four of us. You know what I mean? Huge shout out to them, and securing that foundation in the beginning and setting the path for us. I really wanted to say something. Thanks for sharing that. For the people that may be watching that may have a single parent household or no parents at all, I just wanted to tell you that God got a bigger assignment for you compared to us, man. I'm gonna just be real with you. If you didn't have that type of foundation growing up, I'm just letting you know it's something else bigger out here for you. I don't know what it is, but God gonna do wonders in your life, and you gotta focus on Him because your principles are gonna be way different. Your foundation, you probably rebuilding it. You probably gotta recreate it from the ground up. And I'm just letting you know, like, it's something bigger in this world for you. If your parents not even around anymore, there's something bigger. It's something bigger for you. Your assignment is bigger. That's all I wanted to say. Go ahead, JG. Appreciate you again, Spence.
Appreciate all y'all. Appreciate all y'all responses and what y'all are sharing. I hope the listeners are getting a lot from this. So for me, discernment just has to do with like decision making and just like trying to stay in alignment with God's will. So the way that I'm able to kind of the way that I'm able to kind of utilize discernment in my life is based off the fruit. Like, what kind of fruit are these decisions producing? Or what kind of fruit will these decisions produce? All right. And it leads me back to Old Faithful, Galatians 5:22 and 23, the fruit of the Spirit. All right. So if these people or things or decisions are leading to love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control, then I feel like those things are of God. I think it's pretty clear that those things are of God. And so that's kind of how I approach like discernment and decision making is what is this going to lead to? Is this going to bring me closer to God, or is this going to have me feeling far away from God? Like, what kind of fruit is this going to produce? I know I've done this before, probably more than once across the episodes, but I often refer to the fruit of the Spirit and kind of list those out. But I wanted to revisit the deeds of the flesh, which are listed in starting in verse 19. Actually, let me back up before that. So in Galatians, in chapter 5, it says that if you walk by the Spirit, you will not carry out the desires of the flesh because they're set against each other. So you can't do what you want. If you're led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. And then it gets into the deeds of the flesh. It says, the deeds of the flesh are clear: sexual immorality, impurity, indecency, idolatry, witchcraft, hostility, strife, jealousy, rage, selfish ambition, dissension, factions, envy, drunkenness, carousing, and things like these. So if what you're deciding to do or the things that you're doing are resulting in any of those that I just listed, those things are not of God. As a matter of fact, right after that, it goes on to say, the scripture goes on to say, just as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit God's kingdom. So if you are once you come into the knowledge of God and what Jesus did for us by giving his life on the cross, defeating death in the grave, rising from the dead rising from the grave, after 3 days. Like once you're at a point where you kind of are having awareness of that, and you like continue to live in the ways that I just listed, the deeds of the flesh, like those things are not of God. And so they're saying, if you're doing these things with regularity, you will not inherit God's kingdom, right? Because you're not submitted to Christ. You're not submitting, or you're not even making an attempt to align with God's will if you're doing these things on a regular basis continuously. You're not acknowledging that your life was bought with a price, and that price was the blood of Jesus. And so really his righteousness and his perfect life and righteousness through him can't apply to your life, because you're not actually walking in the freedom that is being gifted to you. You're choosing bondage. Those things that I listed: sexual immorality, impurity, indecency, idolatry, jealousy, rage, selfish ambition, all those things result in bondage. There's no freedom in any of those things. And it's impossible to reflect the life of Christ when you are regularly engaging in activities such as those. Okay? So if you're talking about how do you know that these people or things are or aren't for me, or this isn't what God has for me, what does it lead you to? What kind of person are you? Like, what kind of person do you become when you're around certain people? How do you start acting when you're around certain people? Like, that'll tell you a lot right there. Like, are you filled with joy? Do you have a sense of peace? Are you patient? Or are you feeling like selfish? Are you engaging in drunkenness? Are you angry? Do you feel like you're prone to like dissension or division or factions or anything like that? Like us versus them mentality, me against the world mentality, type stuff like that. Hostility, all these things. So like, what kind of person are you around those people you have questions about? So you gotta have again, it goes back to being honest with yourself and being able to have like a moment of self-reflection, to kind of determine what being around certain people leads to for you. What do you find yourself doing with these people when you're around them? Does it reflect the fruit of the spirit, or does it reflect the deeds of the flesh? If you want to know, is this something that God has for me? Sit down and think about what will it lead to? Is this job for me? Okay, what does this job entail? Is it a job where I can be honest, where I can be truthful and upfront with the people I'm dealing with? Can I be myself? Or do I need to suppress who I am? Do I need to kind of be tight-lipped about my beliefs? Will I be able to share what I believe in? Will I have certain conversations around these people? Or do I have to kind of keep my mouth shut and get this paycheck? Okay, so I mean, these are questions that you got to ask when you're trying to determine God's will for your life. Is it bringing you closer to him? Are you exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit? Is your life reflecting that you are in alignment with God's will? And the way that you determine that is, do you have love, joy, peace? Are you patient? Are you willing to wait on what God has for you, or do you need it right now? If you think this is something that God has for me, but I got to take it right now, you might want to give that a second thought, because one of the fruits of the Spirit is patience. So if you're not able to be patient and wait patiently on what God has for you and get it in his timing, then that might not be what God has for you. If you feel like you have to take it right now, or it's going to be taken away from you. I just think that like it all comes back to, or a good measure for what God has for you, for your life, and what his will is for your life, can be measured against the fruit of the Spirit, and whether or not these things or people are going to allow you to produce that fruit, or if it's going to lead you into deeds of the flesh, which was listed before. So yeah, I think that's a good Galatians For reference, Galatians chapter 5, verses 19 through 23 outlines all of that.
Word, JG. We appreciate you, bro. That was good. That was some good stuff, man. That was a lot. That was a lot to hear, listen to. We appreciate you, man. I hope everybody taking notes. That was a really good section today. Um, man, y'all got anything else that coming to mind, bro? Just listening to JG.
I think what JG said was fire. I think that was the perfect way to explain discernment right there. So I appreciate you that, bro. I did want to say that this has been fun. This has been fun to
Yes,
do,
for sure.
to just answer the audience questions that they've had for us, and hopefully these answers are giving you all what you were looking for when you had these questions. So when you go and listen back to it, I hope that we've answered some of the questions that you were hoping we would answer, and even gave you a little bit more than you were expecting. So this has been fun to do with all three of y'all, man.
Mm-hmm. Nah, that's real. That's real. And I put the comments in there. If y'all got any questions, let's listening. Like we got 5 viewers right now. If you got any questions, please go ahead and comment. Before we go ahead and get off of the stream today. Spence, you take any notes today, man? I think you was fully immersed in the answers today, brother. So it's cool if you ain't do your thing today, bro. I just had to ask though.
Um, Mental notes, actually. I didn't actually write anything down. This is actually all off the dome from
Word.
something from each of you. Shad, I would say from you and your answer to your question would be there's always going to be challenges when spreading the gospel, but don't let that stop you. Don't let that distract you. JG is really figuring out how God speaks to you so you can discern his voice when he's telling you and trying to order your steps in your life. And real for you, in dealing with grief is don't keep it internalized. Learn to express it. Find some support, a support system where that can help you deal with those emotions and that grief and that loss of someone you love, and help you deal with those emotions that you're feeling. So some mental notes. Didn't write anything down. I just wanted to be present in the moment as we were answering these questions. But I'm always listening. Always listening.
Boy, you're sharp. Boy, you're sharp there, man. You're sharp, man. Mr. Hall from Gretna. Boy, sharp there, man. Hey, man. Before we get into the encouragement for the week, I'll let Shai tell you a little bit about what's going on next Monday, and when the episode releasing this week.
Yep. So be on the lookout for this episode coming out Friday. Again, if there's any question that you want to focus on, make sure you check out the details or the description section, excuse me, where we will have the timestamps for each question, so you can go specifically to the question you wanted. If it was your question, you can go directly to that and get the answers if you didn't get to check us out live. And then this upcoming Monday, June 2nd, we'll be on the Warm Up Win the Morning, Win the Day podcast with Dennis Nelson. He's been doing his podcast for 2 years. We'll be live on his podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at 7:30 a.m. That is Monday, June 2nd. So we're excited to be a team to show up and join him from the conversation that he has on this podcast. He talks about a lot of some of the things that we've talked about, and we're just happy to be a guest on his podcast. So again, that would be June 2nd, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So bright and early in the morning. Again, it's the warm up, win your morning, win your day. So come win your morning and win your day with us, joining him on the Warm Up Podcast.
I appreciate you, Shad, man. I don't know, man. I really like this structure today, man. This might be a permanent thing. I don't know, man. Looking like JG might have sparked something, Spence. I don't know, man. I like this, man. I'm taking over territories. God letting us take over some territories today, man. So that's fire. That's fire, man. And we didn't even y'all drop in the chat if y'all want us to kind of let y'all know when we're doing live streams, so you kind of got a heads up. We'll definitely be better about that. We just kind of see what God would do tonight. So we just wanted to kind of go whatever he got planned for us and just give him the glory. So with that being said, man, who want to start us off with the encouragement for the week before we get off for the night?
Yeah, I can start us off, and kind of align with what you just said right now is, make sure you find some fun. Have fun in stuff that you do. There'll be some new things that you may try, and just have fun in it. Like this here, doing a live stream for our question and answers episode one. This was a completely different format than our normal episodes, where we're answering questions, and then we doubled down with it by making it live for y'all. So just learn to have fun with whatever you got going on this week. If it's something new that you're challenged, don't be stressed out by it. Have fun with it. Learn from it, have joy in it, and just experience peace around it when you do it. Because as long as you're having fun, other people are gonna have fun with you.
Appreciate you, Shad. Who else got some encouragement for the week, man?
I'll go ahead. I just been recently what I've been reading is I've been in the Psalms lately, and they've been rocking me, bro. But one in particular really spoke to me was Psalm 25. And there was just a couple of parts I wanted to point out. And just in thinking about people who may be struggling with their faith walk or young in the faith, and just kind of looking for direction, feeling like they may be too far gone to have a relationship with God. David said in Psalm 25, he said, remember not the sins of my youth nor my rebellion. Okay, so that's a confession right there. Like, I have sinned, I have rebelled against you, God, but please don't remember that. Then he goes on to say, according to your mercy, remember me for the sake of your goodness. So this is not because there's anything good in us. That David isn't referring to his own goodness. So, like, don't remember me for the good that I've done. Remember according to your mercy for the sake of your goodness. Like, for the sake of God's goodness, because of who you are, because of your character, okay, have mercy on me and don't remember my sins and the rebellion of my youth. Says, and then this is the part that really got me. It said, good and upright is Adonai, therefore he directs sinners in the way. And the word sinners, just like, I couldn't get over it. I just couldn't get over it. And I'm like, he directs sinners in the way. So we don't have to figure it out on our own. We don't have to figure out this faith thing on our own. We just need to submit. And I know we say that a lot on this show, but like, when you surrender to God, it really just opens up a whole new perspective and way of thinking. Like, it's hard to put into words. But like, I think all of us would agree. We want everyone listening, and even those who aren't listening, just to experience that, like that renewal, that mercy and that grace falling afresh on you, like being directed by God. God, I don't know how to do this. And when you say that, he's just going to take you by the hand. I got you. He's going to take you by your hand, and he's going to lead you. His word says it. Teach me your path. Show me your ways. Teach me your path. Guide me in your truth and teach me. For you are God, my salvation. For you I wait all day. I need you. I'm going to just be sitting here until you tell me what to do, until you show me what to do. I'm going to just be sitting here lost. I'm going to just be sitting here seeking you out, calling on you, because I cannot do this on my own. And I know there might be a lot of people who are feeling like that right now, but we serve a God that will take you by the hand and lead you in the right direction. We serve a God who gave us his Holy Spirit to dwell within us, to lead, guide, and direct us. He gave us his word to be a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. He gave us everything that we need so long as we seek him. If we seek him out and put nothing and no one before him, he is going to lead us and guide us in the right way. Okay, and we'll be able to experience the greatest blessing of all, which is his presence. Don't be in it for what you can gain. Don't be in it for the gifts. Be in it for the gift giver, who gave us the greatest gift that he could. Okay, which is eternal life, for salvation. We spend eternity with him, and we get to experience his presence. The power is God's presence. It ain't in nothing else he can give you. The power is in God's presence. So seek that out daily, man. It says it right there in the song. Teach me your ways, guide me in your truth. You are God, my salvation. Okay? Remember me not because of anything that I have done, but remember me for your sake, because you said that you will never leave nor forsake your people. So I just want to encourage you guys, keep pressing in, keep seeking God, do everything you can to get close to him, stay in the word, stay in prayer. Don't be discouraged by the trials. The trials are momentary. The suffering is only for a little bit compared to the eternal glory we're going to experience in his presence. So don't be discouraged by the trials and the sufferings that you may face in this life. Look ahead to spending eternity with him and just rest and relax in his presence.
Hey man, appreciate you, JG. This is why we don't like following up after you, bro. This is too much. Like you just went in, man. That was a lot, bro. We appreciate that, man. He was talking to me just now, man. But appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you allowing the spirit to guide you too, bro. Always, man. All right, Spence, man. How we gonna follow this up, bro? I don't even know what to say no more.
Who you telling? For me, I would say, for listeners, surround yourself with people that align with you, that align with what you believe in, what you value, your standard, your foundation, and allow them to be there to support you, as these three men do for me. Surround yourself with people with like-minded individuals, and allow them to be your support. There's gonna be some good days, there's gonna be some bad days, there's gonna be some trials, some tribulations, some ups and downs. So find and surround yourself with people that will be there to support you and help you through those difficult times, and people that align with you.
Appreciate you, Spence. Appreciate you, brother. My encouragement for the week would be for all the people that have experienced grief and loss, or some type of death in your life. I just want to say that I'm always praying for you in my prayers, and will continue to do that. And just press into God. As much as it may sound like it's not going to make you feel a certain type of way, it does relieve some of that baggage off your shoulders, or some of that weight. It's a burden that may get lifted, not right now, but if you continue to practice the things that he wants you to do, it's gonna get better. I can't promise that, but I can promise that God can do all things. So I just wanted to say that. I don't have too much to say tonight. I really appreciate everybody who tuned in to episode 16 tonight. Can't believe it's 16 episodes. We'll definitely try to live stream again when we record again in 2 weeks. The episode will release on Friday. Can't remember the date for this Friday, but it will release Friday morning, probably around 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We appreciate everybody for tuning in to listen to episode 16, question and answers. We look forward to doing this again. Please, please, please send us a message on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and we'll answer any questions that you may have, any thoughts that you may be thinking about based on our conversations. We'll be happy to answer them. We just hope everybody has a blessed week. Hope you have a great and amazing week, and do great things that bless others. We appreciate you guys, and we hope you guys have a great week.